The Sun Belt semifinals are set. It's Locked On Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, a special edition of Locked On Sun Belt. Dave Schultz, your host. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right. The one time that you don't like daylight savings time, going to bed at midnight and getting up at 5:45 and not lose that hour. That's rough. And there's no alcohol involved. Anyway, we'll get to the Troy beating ODU. Give credit to ODU. You know, they show a little bit of heart. That game very easily could have been 33 or 43 points, and they cut a 23-point game down to 10, and actually made Troy work for it a little bit. And in the last segment, we will preview the semifinal games. We'll try to wait till the end, but we'll probably seep into each of the regular segments. Arkansas State survives the Marshall Thundering Herd in what was I thought, a really good college basketball game. 77-74. I do need, and I didn't go back, and I need to hear the couple things I do have questions about. All right. Well, let's get this out of the way. All right. The double figures for all of the starters. All right. For Arkansas State, Taron Todd led the way with 19 points. Isaiah Nelson had a really big second half because he didn't do much in the first half. He had 12 points and 14 rebounds, hit all of his free throws, 8 out of 8. Now, oddly enough, Arkansas State missed 7 free throws, and Marshall missed 9 free throws. So not a whole lot of difference there. One was 22 out of 29. The other was 19 out of 28. I guess if you lose by 3 and you miss 9, and the other one wins by 3 and misses 7, it's not that big of a deal. Not a whole lot of production from the Arkansas State bench. Only 2 points off the bench. Anachili Killen had 26 points. Dawson had 14, all in the second half. He came out on fire. He had like 13 points in 5.5 minutes of the second half, first 5.5 minutes of the second half. And Mingo had 14 points for Marshall as well. Anachili Killen had 17 in the first half. Okay. My question is, and we'll see if this was answered because I didn't get a chance to see it. Anachili Killen sat for like 6 minutes in the first half, and I had to see if he was in foul trouble or not. I get resting your guys. He came out at the 11:40 mark and at the 11:20 mark. Game was tied at 13, and I'm pretty sure he had 11 points at that point in time. He had 11 of the 13 points. He came back in at the 6 minute or the 5 minute mark. And I'm not sure why. He came back in at the 5:34 mark. So he stayed out a whole 6 minutes. Now, the game didn't change that much. Went from 13-13 to, let's see where we say here, 5:34 to 25-24. It was 25-25 when he came back in. So not that big a deal. And so you got some minutes with him on the bench. But what are we doing? He was the best player on the floor. You know, I mean, Brian Hodgson was asked, what are you doing to control him defensively? And he should have said nothing because they were doing nothing. He had 17 points in the first half in 14 minutes of play. The best defense that Arkansas State had for Anachili Killen in the first half was him sitting on the bench for 6 minutes. That is mind-boggling. So a lot of times, I'm sure we all know this by now, but a lot of times in these, when you're playing multiple games, and Marshall was only playing their second game in 2 days, but coaches are going to find those media timeouts, right, and sit you right before that 12-minute timeout. He came out after the 12-minute timeout, or the 8-minute timeout, right? And they're going to try to get you that extra 2 minutes for the TV timeout. Is basically what it is. We're going to sit you down. Hopefully there'll be a couple stoppage of plays, and then you get that TV timeout, and then you come right back out. And sometimes, if you notice, they don't even come out for when that TV timeout is done. They actually let the other guys go out, and then you're the first substitution, something like that. But he sat out for 6 minutes. I don't know. I don't know if he was hurt. I didn't get it. I didn't understand that at all. All right. So that is the one big question that I have for Cornelius Jackson. I didn't understand that at all. Having said that, the big turning point of the game was Nate Martin getting ejected from the game. And as Matt Stewart and Victor Howell says, that's not from a scoring point of view, but a lot of Marshall's offense goes through Nate Martin in terms of he's the guy that the ball rotates through at the top of the key. He's doing the dirty work, rebounding, passing. He's an experienced guy. And whether the call was soft or weak or not, there's no reason for Nate Martin to take a shot at Kobe Julian, and he did. Okay. Couldn't see it from behind, honestly, because I guess I'm looking at the elbow. He turned the camera around, and he took a shot at his groin. And he could clearly see it, and the referee saw it. Well, how much contact he made, I don't really care. Don't be taking a shot at the guy's groin in the quarterfinals of the Sun Belt. And if people are commenting, maybe the refs should take that into account. Don't leave it up to the refs, and especially don't leave it up to the Sun Belt refs. All right, as coaches have pointed out to me before, Nate Martin made it all about Nate Martin, and that's, he left his teammates. That was a very selfish move by Nate Martin. All right, for whatever reason, Nate Martin wanted to get Kobe Julian, and there's probably other ways to do that when it wouldn't have been so obvious. And so Nate Martin put his team in a bad spot. Now, did they almost overcome it? They did. But just to make sure, it's not quite football, but there's 14 minutes left. So there was plenty of time. This wasn't exactly 4 minutes left, but there's 14 minutes left. Marshall was up 6, and they had the ball. So they had a chance to go up by 8 or 9 points. They really had a chance to take control of the game. And that's when it started to slip away. It went from 52-46 to 53-51 to 55-55. So, so what is that? Now I'm looking at it. I got to do it in my head. So that's a 9 to 3 run. I got a 10 to 3 run. I got an 11 to 3 run. It went from 52-46 to 57-55, and then it got tied at 57-57. No. So from 52-46 to 57-55 in 5 minutes. That was the turning point of the game. Now, at the end of the game, there were certainly some questionable calls, foul-wise. I will admit, one time, Achille Killen had a nice block underneath, and I thought it was a late call when he got called for a foul afterwards, but he did reach. I didn't see that to begin with. I thought it was a late call, but he wasn't mad at the refs. He was mad at his teammates. As Victor Howell said, nobody rotated back twice. So he was the help defense on the guy driving the baseline, and then no one helped on the offensive rebound. So he helped on the block, and then no one helped on the offensive rebound. So he swiped and got may have been Isaiah Nelson on the arm. I don't know who, but he was mad at that. So and then at the end, ticky-tack foul on Achille Killen on the 3-pointer. I mean, I guess it was, I don't know if it was called right away because the ref put the arm up, but I think that was for 3. And Achille Killen stopped, and he may have grazed his left arm, Pinion's left arm, but he's shooting with his right. I mean, grazed it. And then you get a Mingo, I think it was Mingo who drove, and Terran Todd had him on the arm and no call. So I'm just looking for consistency here. All right. So one was hit on the arm and not called, and one was grazed on the non-shooting arm and was called. And I am one, you either call it, the first 10 seconds of the game or the last 10 seconds of the game. I'm not one of those. Well, you can't call it at this point in time of the game. I'm not one of those guys. But you got to call it fair on both ends. And I thought it didn't feel like it was going the same way on both ends. That's the way I thought, at least for me. And there was one play where, I don't know, was it Mingo? Someone dribbled right into Terran Todd, and they called a foul on Terran Todd. I don't understand how that one happened. So Arkansas State wins at the end. Marshall had their shots. Let's not make like they didn't. They certainly did. I still think the Nate Martin call turned the game. And that was the difference in the game, flat out. That was the difference in the game. And that's a selfish job by Nate Martin. Too experienced and too good of a player to let his emotions get the best of him. But that's what happened. And that's really why Marshall lost the game, if you ask me. So Arkansas State gains revenge on Marshall. Will they be able to gain revenge on South Alabama? That is their next foe, and that is the semifinals at 5 p.m. tonight. We will do that a little bit later, but let's talk about Troy cooling off ODU. We will do that next after I talk about FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, special Sunday edition. As the Sunbelt semifinals are set, daylight savings time is over. We get a lot of sunlight today. Although here in Louisville, it is interesting. This is like one of the furthest cities in the East Coast all the way to the West. People who take tours can get confused with the time change because Bowling Green, coming from the South, or Nashville, is an hour difference. So they can mess that up. So it's been pretty light here late. It's going to be later now, but it's been late into 7:30 for more than a minute. It is what it is. All right. Troy cooling off ODU. And this was going to be the game, as Marshall and Arkansas State kind of was chalk. It was the 4 versus the 5. ODU had made a run. They were going to be playing their 4th game in 4 days. Troy, the number 3 seed, could they knock off ODU? And, would ODU run out of gas? And that answer was yes. And it happened with about 5 minutes left to go in the first half. It was 19-15. And that was basically the end of the game right there. ODU's legs went cold. And Troy took control. It went from 19-15 to 36-18 at the half. Troy finished on a 17-3 run, and ODU went 1 for 15 from the floor. And that was basically all she wrote. Troy came out hot. to begin the second half. Did get it all the way up to 23 points. Let me see what the exact score was. It was 49 to 26, but Troy got it down, or ODU did get it down to 10. I want to see if they got it down to 8. They got it down to 10, 55-45. That's 8:44 to go. I don't think they got it less than 10. No, they didn't. That was as close as they got it. That was it. So they made Troy work for it. I mean, that's a good job. Honestly, they're exhausted, right? I mean, and they're getting their butts kicked, and you're looking up, and boy, legs just aren't moving, right? You can only go so fast, and the other team's legs are fresh, and their shots are falling. But you made a little bit of a run, and you showed some heart. I think that's cool. You kept your composure, right? I don't think there was any, issues on the court, right? You just got beat. I did like the idea that, Matt Stewart had such a, good things to say about Sean Durugordon, and they're probably right about, Sean Durugordon, 4 double-doubles in 4 games. He's like, I bet you that's some sort of Sun Belt record. And then Victor Howell's like, that may be some sort of, national record. 14 points, 16 rebounds. That's outstanding, right? And that, because of the way the tournament works, he's not going to get MVP because it's going to come from one of the, it's going to come from the winning team probably. But it very well could be Sean Durugordon as the player of the tournament because he had an outstanding tournament. So we'll see what comes out here in the next day or two. I don't know if that's come out, how many, guys have had 4 double-doubles. So he'll be on the all-tournament team. He was outstanding. Let's see. It was Robert Davis Jr. had 10, and R.J. Blakeney had a big ball game. He had 20 points. For Troy, Tayton Conerway finished with 18. He led the way. Miles Rigby had 17. And then, Marcus Rigsby had 10, and Dowd had 10. And I think the big thing, let's check out the minutes in this. Although a couple of guys played a lot. Rigsby played 30. Miles Rigby played 35 minutes. Conerway played 34. Jackson Fields played 32. The idea with a blowout is that they don't play a lot of minutes. All right. Although this is where it may not matter. It may, all right, because if Troy wins this, they will have played 3 ball games compared to, well, we'll see. It may not matter because if Arkansas State knocks off South Alabama, both Troy and Arkansas State will be playing their 3rd game. If Troy has to play South Alabama, South Alabama will have 1 less game. Again, I'm not sure it matters 1 less game. When you start doing 2, then that matters more than 1. I think it matters, and obviously no off days. And these guys are pretty young. When it's ODU going for 4 days compared to 1, that's a huge difference. And you're wondering when it would hit them, and they were right there in 1915 with 5 minutes to go in the half, and Troy was really hot. Let me see. Let me see what Troy shot at 44%. Okay. Let me see. Let's see if we can narrow it down for the first half box. Let's see what Troy shot in the first half. First half, they didn't shoot it all that great. Interesting. Only 40%. So let's see what ODU did. Even worse, apparently. See, here's the problem. ODU was 4 of 13 in the first half. There you go. So it wasn't that Troy played all that well. It's that ODU couldn't throw it into the ocean. R.J. Blakeney was 1 of 10. Sean Durugordon was 2 of 7, and that was the high. Nobody else had made more than 1 shot. Swanton Rogers was 1 for 2. Blakeney was 1 for 10. Jaden Johnson, 0 of 5. Sean Durugordon, 2 of 7. Robert Davis Jr. was 0 of 1. Nobody hit more than one shot in the first half for Old Dominion. That's the problem. All right. That's what happened in the first half. I don't know if that's legs or not, but they couldn't hit a shot. There you go. So it wasn't that Troy was playing great, maybe playing great defensively, but not great offensively. All right. So after all that, we've been playing since Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We're chalk. We got the number 1 versus number 4 and number 2 versus the number 3. And let me see, we had a grand total of 2 upsets. All right. And they were both on the bottom. We had Old Dominion beating Texas State and Old Dominion beating App State. And that's it. Up top was chalk, right? Southern Miss beat Coastal. Georgia Southern beat Southern Miss. Georgia State beat Georgia Southern. Marshall won. So that was chalk up top. And on the bottom, it was just Old Dominion with a couple of wins, which was not chalk. And that was it. So, and at the end, we are chalk, so to speak. We'll see if that changes today. All right. And we will preview the Sun Belt semifinals right after I tell you about Nissan. We're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear, wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right, first up, and I do believe it is at 5 p.m. So the semifinals are set. The first one is South Alabama and Arkansas State. That's 1 versus 4. And it is at 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll see if we get to bed at a decent hour because we'll probably do the podcast. Depending if we're overtime, we'll probably see if we can sneak the podcast in before we go to bed. And if you guys don't know this, it's all about me. As we all know, South Alabama has swept Arkansas State. It's not going to be easy to beat a team 3 times in one season. It was 2 different ball games in Mobile. South Alabama was flying high at this point in time. They were rocking and rolling. This was in mid-January. Let me see when this game was. Beginning of January. No, almost mid-January. January 9th. 76-62. All right. South Alabama improved to 12-4, 4-0 in the conference. And I think this is when people started taking South Alabama seriously. They had beaten JMU to begin the year and then took care of the Georgias. And this is when they were killing everybody. Now, in this game, 2 things happened. First of all, Kobe Julian did not play. All right. So that was a thing. But don't let that 76-62 score fool you because it wasn't that close. All right. Let's see here. Because with 5:15 to go, it was a 19-point game, 66-47. All right. It got up to 21 with 3 minutes left to go. In fact, Eli Ormiston at 2:15 made it a 21-point game, 74-53. All right. And so Arkansas State, in a game that was over, went on a 9-2 run to close it to a 12-point or 14-point game. I know I always think it was 12. My understanding is that there would be no math. So it was a 14-point game, but it was not that close. All right. So that was the first game, South Alabama, 76-62. The second game was much closer, 60-56, South Alabama in Jonesboro. All right. And this was a game where, boy, if Arkansas State won, which everybody thought, as Arkansas State was favored by 7.5, this is the game that got South Alabama back in the race to win the conference title, regular season anyway. And not only South Alabama, but got Troy and JMU back in the mix as well. And kind of got people start to wondering about Arkansas State. And this game, despite that score, wasn't as close as it would indicate. South Alabama just couldn't pull away because they couldn't hit a free throw. 11 out of 22 at the free throw line. And I'm going to say at least 3 of those are front ends of 1-and-1s. So, that's almost, you could say 14 missed free throws. So if you hit some of those, it's a double-digit ball game. All right. So we'll see how Arkansas State reacts and if they figure out the zone, because they really haven't figured it out. Let's see what the shooting was in the first one. They were 12 of 49 from 3. Didn't shoot well in the first one. All right. Second one, 5 of 50. 6 of 31 in the second one. So they haven't figured it out yet. Here's the thing. I'm sure they've been working on it. Now, you can't overlook Marshall because they got beat, right? But they've been working on it. They have a week, right? You got to work on Marshall and probably Georgia State. They knew that. They knew they were down to that. And so they've been working on Marshall, but they're probably working on South Alabama as well. How are we going to do this? And here's the thing. South Alabama, again, leads the nation in 3-point shots attempted. Some got to go in. Now, I think they did a pretty good job, having said that Kobe Julian did not play in the first game. I think they did a pretty good job on Kobe Julian. 37 minutes, 8 points, 5 rebounds. All right. Now, Isaiah Nelson had a huge ball game, 16 points, 23 rebounds. That's a big number because he out-rebounded South Alabama on his own. He had 23 rebounds. South Alabama had, I rephrase that. Well, he had 23 rebounds. South Alabama had 32. So that's pretty good. All right. I'm looking at the wrong number, but still pretty good. He had 23 rebounds. South Alabama as a team had 32. Impressive. All right. Barry Dunning had 14 points. It was really spread out in this ball game. In terms of, South Alabama didn't shoot it very well. They just played really good defense. Eli Ormiston held to 7 points. Miles Corey held to 8 points. Judah Brown, had 10 points off the bench. Kentia Ramming had 7 points off the bench. I mean, again, South Alabama is not a huge scoring team. They only scored 60 in this game. And their free throw shooting almost cost them the game. Joseph Pinion had a big ball game in this one. He had 17. And again, Arkansas State, no production off the bench. They had no points off the bench. We'll see if that is the case in this one. They had all 56 points, were their starters. We'll see. So keep an eye on Kobe Julian is kind of the X factor in this one, and see if Isaiah Nelson can continue his good play. Now, the other one is Troy against JMU. This was a really good basketball game the first time around. 64-61 JMU in Harrisonburg. JMU was in control of this game, really nip and tuck the whole second half. Troy took a 61-59 lead, but then James Madison scored the last 5 points of the game and won the basketball game. So this could go either way. I should mention Arkansas State, oddly enough, is favored by 4.5. That's interesting. Troy is favored by 3.5. Also interesting. I say that because, South Alabama is the 1 seed and beat Arkansas State twice. JMU is the 2 seed and beat Troy the first time around. So interestingly enough. All right. So these are going to be two really good basketball games. Matchup wise, the big difference is that Troy plays a little bit better defense. JMU scores 74 points a game. Troy scores 73 points a game. JMU gives up 70 points a game, but Troy only gives up 65 points a game. There are, again, huge, Mark Freeman averages 15 points a game. Tayton Conerway averages 14 points a game, right? There's not a huge matchup in terms of, there's a huge score on either one of these teams. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this goes. Again, I don't know if South Alabama can beat Arkansas State for a third time. It's mind-boggling that Arkansas State has not looked particularly good, not once, but twice against South Alabama. It'll be interesting to see how that plays itself out. And we'll see, same thing. Arkansas State overcame not playing for a week. Troy came out like gangbusters, basically. Both JMU and South Alabama haven't played since like 10 days ago, Friday. Do we need to do the math, right? Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They haven't played in 8 days. 8. This is the 9th day. That's a lot. So we'll see. If South Alabama is hitting their threes, they're tough to beat. And again, we'll see. Again, the big number for South Alabama is 70. If the opponent scores 70, the opponent usually wins. I will rephrase that. If South Alabama scores 70, they usually win. Usually. Also the opponent. If they hold the opponent under 70, they usually win. It's one of those two. It may be both. But defensively, we'll see. If Arkansas State can figure out the defense, they haven't yet. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. We'll see. JMU and Troy have only played once. This is what the Sun Belt wanted. This is what the Sun Belt got. They got the number 1 seed versus the number 4 seed, and the number 2 seed versus the number 3 seed. All right. So really looking forward to it. I got a full day of work. Rumor has it my brother's coming to take a tour, so that'll be fun. So it's always nice when you're going to work on a Sunday after 5 hours of sleep, and you have something to look forward to at the end of the day. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Please subscribe. We seem to be stuck on 1,880. That's all right. We'll get to 1,900. Spring football is underway. We're starting to go after the coaches for that. Did get a couple of people to respond at least, although no yeses quite yet. All right. We may have some this week. We'll see. We'll check it out. Thanks again for tuning in. Enjoy the basketball game. We will have an episode, of course, on Monday, and then, we'll wrap it up on Tuesday as well to determine the champion. And then we have to wait another week, right? A week from today to find out where the Sun Belt champion will play. Remember last year, JMU had that big win over Wisconsin in Madison Square Garden. So that was a lot of fun. All right, everyone, enjoy your Sunday. Enjoy the basketball. We'll have a full recap on a Monday. You've been watching and listening to Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day,